guys, and welcome back to the Hot Tea channel where we spill tea left, right, and everywhere in between. It is that time again. We are giving you all the details in a Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial catch-up. You know the drill with the subscription button and the notification bell and all that, so let's not waste any time because there's a lot to get into. It has been weeks of back and forth between Johnny's legal team and Amber's legal team, and on Wednesday yesterday, it had finally come time for the jury to deliberate. And now, while we know the result of the deliberation, I figured here is a quick recap of how everything's been going for the past couple of weeks. The internet has been along for basically every portion of this legal journey between the ex-married couple, and people have spared literally no opinion from being voiced. Before we get into it all, I would like to say that this case from the start really felt like something that shouldn't have been televised, and the audio and video evidence that is reviewed is very disturbing and absolutely triggering for anyone who may have suffered an abusive relationship in the past. You likely know most of the details by now and certainly are aware of the severity of the claims, but we'll throw up a quick disclaimer here anyway, so if you are triggered by discussion of domestic violence in SA, please proceed with caution. We're gonna go through and give you a catch up on the recent week's trial happenings, and we will be quick in that stuff that happened a little while back, but we just attempt to be thorough here on the Hot Tea channel. Please keep in mind too that anything that we don't cover is not an attempt to be one-sided. There's just so much in the trial, it's crazy and literally impossible to go through every detail. But we do our best to give you what we can, and as always, the comment section is open for discussion. Just be nice. Last week, there was a lot of back and forth between Johnny's attorney, Camille, and Amber during her interrogation, or is it cross-examination, in regards to the money that was supposed to be donated. Amber seems to possibly not understand what the difference between the words donate and pledge are, and honestly, the exchange between Camille and Amber on this topic was hilarious.
You still haven't donated the $7 million divorce settlement to charity, isn't that right?
Incorrect. I pledged the entirety of the settlement, $7 million to charity, and I intend to fulfill those obligations.
That's not my question.
He pulled out the camera. That's
Please,
us.
What was
try
your
to answer
question?
my question.
I use pledge and donation synonymous with one another.
But I don't. Ms. Heard, I don't use it synonymously.
They covered in detail what exactly happened with this donation that was promised, and Amber explains that $100,000 was donated directly from Johnny to each of the chosen charities, so in total $200,000. Amber later demanded that Johnny pay the money to her directly as she did not want him to benefit in his taxes from the donation. Amber explains that she said Johnny was welcome to donate it directly, but for an adjusted amount that matched his tax bracket more. Camille dives into this further and submits a clip into evidence of Amber on a TV show, kind of flexing the donation in a way.
$7 million in total was donated to, I split it between ACLU and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles.
ACLU is a human rights organization.
Sorry, ACLU is a prominent organization, nonprofit organization in the United States. Yeah. It's called the American Civil Liberties Union, and they work on behalf of marginalized communities on the ground and in legislative reform.
Right.
And
well, more power to you, because that's something that I've never heard
I wanted
of.
Nothing.
This interview was in October of 2018, right, Ms. Heard?
I don't recall when it was.
Even though Amber claims that she truly wanted nothing out of the divorce, Camille points out that Amber had the full divorce settlement by February 2018 and did not even pay the donation but was happy to brag about it. Amber attributes the fact that it wasn't donated due to being sued by her ex-husband, but again, Amber apparently had the full settlement of $7 million about 13 months before the lawsuit ever started. Camille accuses Amber of wanting to be seen as a victim, which seems to make Amber sort of snap in a way and say that she never has called herself a victim and definitely does not want to be seen as one. Johnny's attorneys also bring up the fact that there were sizable donations made, but by somebody else.
At least $500,000 that was donated to the ACLU in your name wasn't paid by you, right?
The largest portion.
I believe Elon made a donation in my honor on one of the years.
Yeah, and it didn't come out of your $7 million divorce settlement, right?
Amber defends this and says that this did not count towards her pledge. Camille continues, clearly out for blood, and says that she, quote, got him to pay a large portion of that donation on her behalf so she could keep that money for herself. And after that, Camille basically ends the day. Like, she wraps up and just leaves the jury on that note. Absolutely savage. Continuing on with Camille literally coming for Amber's throat real quick, there was a portion of the cross-examination where Camille attempts to piece together the timeline in which Amber had detailed a particularly gruesome part of the alleged abuse.
Mr. King testified under oath in this trial, right?
That is correct.
And he testified that there was no wall-mounted phone smashed to smithereens that he had to replace, correct?
I didn't hear him testify to that, no.
He did.
The night in question is the night Amber says there was an active abuse with a bottle, and we won't go into detail on that here now, but Camille is trying to clarify the sequence in which this night happened.
That he smashed the phone to smithereens and then assaulted you, lost the tip of his finger, and then assaulted you with a bottle. Yes, that's the sequence of events that you testified to in this courtroom.
To be clear, you're putting it in order when you say words like, then. I have never claimed that I can remember the exact sequence of these things. This was a multi-day assault that took place over 3 horrible days.
Ms. Heard,
it's the worst thing ever happened to me. I don't remember
Ms.
the
Heard,
exact
that's
sequence.
not my question. I'm just talking about the sexual assault that you now allege occurred.
Camille breaks down the transcript from Amber's testimony on this exact night, and she tells Amber that all of this was said under oath. So big important to make sure it's the truth, you guys. Amber defends herself and says that she never once said under oath that it was the sequence of events. She never testified to a sequence. During this part of the trial, Camille gets obviously very frustrated with Amber, as it seems almost every time a question is asked, Amber kind of goes off into some other story and roundabout way of getting a sort of an answer out. I will also say it was super annoying to watch this part because Amber's defense attorney would object, but she always forgot to turn her mic back on, and I found that literally so annoying. Another piece of evidence that was brought up was Amber during the prior trial. During that trial, Amber was explaining that she wanted to get the news of the divorce to Johnny before he found out from somebody else.
Specifically saying I would like him to know information coming from me or coming from Jerry, from me, so that he finds out about the divorce filing from some other source other than TMZ, which was alerted. Alerted? Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
Up there, didn't you, Ms. Heard? You let it slip out that TMZ had been alerted to your filing of the domestic violence restraining order, didn't you?
The realization in her eyes really makes me cringe, like how embarrassing. In the current trial, after showing that piece of evidence, Camille goes in on Amber, talking about how she reckons that Amber sold the videos to TMZ and they owned the kitchen cabinet video and they paid her. During the other side's turn, Amber's attorney questions her and Camille objects so many times because the questions are leading and hearsay. I told you there was a lot to get into. Let's jump to the closing arguments, as that was what happened this week. Johnny's attorney, Camille, begins her closing argument stating that this case is taking place exactly 6 years after the moment Amber, quote, ruined Johnny's life by telling the world that he was abusive to her. May 27th, 2016 was the date that Amber got that restraining order against Johnny and kind of kickstarted this whole thing. Camille says that on this day, being May 27th, exactly 6 years ago, Amber falsified a claim and report as well as tipped off the paparazzi and set the whole scene up.
The image of a battered woman. What the paparazzi did not know is that the dark mark on her face mysteriously appeared 6 days after last seeing Mr. Depp. It was a lie.
We have seen Camille throw constant shade at Amber during this trial, and in my opinion, and honestly seemingly the opinion of many others, it seems that Camille has a genuine dislike for Amber above and beyond everything that has happened during this trial. She seems to legit hate her. Camille continues saying that Amber never thought that Johnny would tell the world that he was the abused one and that her stories would be vetted, so she thought she would get away with it all. These are Camille's words, not mine. She also accuses Amber of being violently afraid of being abandoned and desperate for attention. Camille brings focus back to Amber's character and mentions the mental health issues as well as the need to stay and fight, often striking Johnny when he attempted to remove himself from arguments that were headed into a physically violent place. She plays the clips that we have heard numerous times since the start of this trial, including the now infamous "I was hitting you, I did not punch you" audio recording. Camille says that the Amber Heard we hear in the recording is the real Amber. The Amber that presented herself in court was fake. Camille also calls out Amber for allegedly lying about leaking pictures and information to TMZ and People magazine, saying that the pictures were on Amber's phone and somehow ended up on the cover. And then she comes for the legitimacy of Amber's crying on the stand.
That Ms. Heard has difficulty crying when she is acting. You saw it. Ms. Heard sobbing without tears, while spinning elaborate, exaggerated, fantastical accounts of abuse, and everything going on in her mind almost a decade prior while enduring that abuse.
One thing that could be noted as interesting as well is that Camille says in and amongst all of these pictures Amber took of Johnny sleeping in the damaged property and the fact that as an actress, Amber would be photographed all the time, there was no evidence of any of this abuse. Contrary to what Amber says, which is that she has mountains of evidence, Camille basically says that while you were taking pictures and audio recordings constantly, she never got anything of the injuries that she allegedly sustained. Again, her words, not mine. And of course, Amber's team also had some things to say during their portion of the closing arguments. Amber's attorney begins by saying that there is a message being sent to every victim of abuse out there with what is going on with the trial and particularly on Johnny's side.
If you didn't take pictures, it didn't happen. If you did take pictures, they're fake. If you didn't tell your friends, you're lying. And if you did tell your friends, they're part of the hoax.
I will inject here briefly and say that I believe there is some meat to that point. I do think that it is on par with victim behavior to not take pictures of the injuries and to want to hide away and to want to protect your abuser and even sometimes feel shame for what has happened. In contrast to that, similar to Camille's point prior, considering Amber took photos and recordings of so much, you would think that she would get some shots of her injuries, etc., but we really cannot put ourselves in her shoes during these moments because frankly, we just weren't there. But anyway, continuing on. Rottenborn attributes Johnny's supposed smear campaign against Amber as something that he did because in quote, Johnny's world, you do not leave Johnny. Amber's attorney pulls out the First Amendment card and says to the jury that if you support the amendment, you cannot rule in favor of Johnny for this case because Amber has a right to have written what she wrote.
And you cannot simultaneously protect and uphold the First Amendment and find in favor of Johnny Depp on his claim. You simply cannot.
He continues by breaking down in great detail what the trial actually is about and how they should be preparing to make their decision. Rottenborn says that it can be easy in this case to forget or lose sight of what the claim actually is, and he even presents somewhat of a checklist to help them determine if Johnny's claims has any legs to stand on. He says that under the burden of proof, it is basically Johnny's problem to prove each and every one of these points, and if he or his legal side cannot, then Amber wins. I'm sure that the point he's making might be appreciated by the jury and can definitely be said to be a good defense tactic, as certainly the point of the trial has been a bit distorted, at least to everyone watching outside of the courtroom, but I can't help but feel like the way Rottenborn does this is just condescending a little bit. Thoughts, you guys? I'm not a lawyer yet, nor do I do anything in the courtroom, but it's just a little patronizing, no? While he breaks down the list of points that must be hit, he says that number 5 is particularly important to this case. It reads, the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard. Basically, that means that she would have had to intentionally and deliberately written the op-ed with the means to expose Johnny for the abuse. Her attorney says that because she never named him in this piece, number 5 cannot be ticked off. Rottenborn says that people read the op-ed and remembered that Amber was with Johnny Depp and basically put 2 and 2 together themselves. Now, I cannot speak on Amber's intentions, and none of us truly can, but I can certainly say that Amber is not a stupid woman. Of course, on some level, she would have been entirely aware of the fact that the public would realize whom she was speaking on, like, duh. Amber's lawyer continues and addresses the headline of the op-ed directly, which, if you've forgotten, was called, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. This has to change. He says that she did not write that headline and actually had nothing to do with it at all. She apparently wasn't even given notice about it.
People who have suffered that, they don't want to broadcast that to the world. They want to penalize Ms. Heard for not speaking about that earlier. That's ridiculous and it's insulting.
He says that the only mention of sexual violence actually in the op-ed was Amber referring to something that happened when she hit college age, and it was before Johnny Depp. The title wasn't written by Amber, and the mention of the essay in the article was not talking about Johnny. Rottenborn breaks down abuse and mentions that it can come in all shapes and sizes. He says that yelling and writing aggressive messages and smashing and breaking things all constitute abuse, and to be honest, he's got a good point there for sure. I'm not saying either way right now in regards to this particular situation, as I really want to focus on attempting to remain impartial so I can give you the facts and information, but what he's saying right there is true. Abuse does come in many forms, and certainly smashing things around the house and yelling at someone constantly can be considered abusive behavior. If we put all that out of the story of Johnny versus Amber and apply it somewhere else, I'm sure you would agree. But anyway, continuing.
And he's trying to get you, to fool you, to believing that he's carried his burden of proof that never a single time in their relationship was he in any way, physically or non-physically, abusive to Miss Heard. And that's ridiculous.
He also says that even if you think that Amber was abusive, or even if it might be that they were both abusive, Amber still wins.
They're trying to trick you into thinking that Amber has to be perfect in order to win, even while they're ignoring Mr. Depp's many flaws. But don't fall for that trick. Amber's not perfect. None of us are. She's never pretended to be, and that's not what you're being asked to decide. One time, ladies and gentlemen, if he abused her one time, Amber wins.
Rottenborn goes through text messages where Johnny said some really disturbing things about Amber, as well as the also now infamous video evidence of the kitchen incident where Johnny slams cabinets and drinks wine. While the video is playing, Johnny seems to be sort of giggling with his lawyer possibly. This does not go unnoticed by Rottenborn.
Do you see Miss Heard laughing in that? She's not laughing in that. Mr. Depp in his courtroom right now is laughing and making snide remarks as that video is being played.
He also explains that Amber was never the one who shared anything with TMZ, and that is proven by the phone records. She was apparently on a plane when it was sent. Now, I'm sorry to say this, but she could have, of course, sent it to someone else and had them send it onto TMZ. Sorry, just had to throw that out there. It really isn't that hard to get information to TMZ. They're not some exclusive news source. Rottenborn re-shows the pictures of Johnny sleeping and says that these are, in fact, not pictures of him sleeping, but rather of Johnny passed out, and Amber took them because she wanted him to get help. What do you guys think about that? Let's see some discussions in the comment section portion. Rottenborn basically accuses all of the witnesses that sat on the stand during the trial of Johnny of lying and saying that they are on payroll. A pretty big accusation there as well. He also brings up the finger situation where Amber allegedly threw a bottle and it cut the tip of Johnny's finger off. I'm sure you remember. Rottenborn says that Amber could have cut his finger off with a chainsaw, and it literally would not matter in this case as it would not prove whether or not Johnny abused her. He basically calls bullshit on that whole scene, but he does refer to the next morning when Amber allegedly woke up and there was paint and blood everywhere from Johnny writing on the walls and mirrors with this supposed non-existent or whatever finger, and Rottenborn says that that is abuse. The treatment of Amber's things and all of this behavior, Rottenborn says that this is abuse. He also elaborates on the claims that the abuse was fake and is proven by the lack of injury shown the day after while on the James Corden show. Rottenborn says that for the jury to side with Johnny would pretty much be putting a message out there that when you are a victim, you should always be doing more. Take more pictures, tell more people, just do more, otherwise you're lying. And honestly, you guys, that is a really important thing to keep in mind during this case. We actually received an email from a viewer who shared with us an article they wrote about this whole Johnny versus Amber case, and it is a very interesting and insightful read, so I wanted to share it with you guys as well. No matter what side you are on during this case, I believe it is absolutely important to keep in mind that there are victims out there that will be affected by this case, regardless of the outcome. This is such a talked about topic, and it's all over headlines every day, and literally everyone on the internet and walking around outside has an opinion, and victims are hearing and reading these opinions. So I encourage you to take a read of this very eloquent article that was shared with us, and just keep some of this in mind when you're talking to your friends or posting about this case. And I'll put the link down below for you guys. After what seems like forever, a verdict was finally made on Wednesday after about 3 days of deliberation from the jury. Amber and her team were there with bells on, but Johnny actually did not make an appearance for the verdict.
As against Amber Heard, we, the jury, award compensatory damages in the amount of $10 million. As against Amber Heard, we, the jury, award punitive damages in the amount of $5 million.
They basically called the whole thing a hoax, and they specifically referred to the night that the police were called, where we saw some of the body cam footage, if you remember. They say that her and her friends set the whole scene up, and since the first time they called the cops didn't work, they quote, roughed the place up and then called them again. Amber didn't lose every single count, but she lost the case basically, and then she made a statement. She shared on Twitter her thoughts on the verdict, and here is what she had to say. The disappointment I feel today is beyond words. I'm heartbroken that the mountain of evidence still was not enough to stand up to the disproportionate power, influence, and sway of my ex-husband. I'm even more disappointed with what this verdict means for other women. It is a setback. It sets back the clock to a time when a woman who spoke up and spoke out could be publicly shamed and humiliated. It sets back the idea that violence against women is to be taken seriously. I believe Johnny's attorneys succeeded in getting the jury to overlook the key issue of freedom of speech and ignore evidence that was so conclusive that we won in the UK. I'm sad I lost this case, but I'm sadder still that I seem to have lost a right I thought I had as an American to speak freely and openly. Though we all likely mainly see support for Johnny across the internet, there is still support for Amber, with some comments on her statements reading, "I'm so sorry, you are and will always will be the strongest person I know. Don't forget that I love you so much and I'll stand by your side always, no matter what." And here are a couple more comments. One side will say that this is a good situation and this gives male victims everywhere a voice, while the opposing side will say that this is detrimental to the female victims out there that are silenced, and this will continue to keep many silent in regards to their abuse. I think we should all keep in mind that this is this case, and other cases are other cases. Don't turn this into a blanketed situation that is repeated when any abuse is brought up. Male victims' voices are important and should be heard, and female victims' voices are important and should be heard as well. Anyway, guys, that is going to be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to do the thing with the subscription button and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. I also really am curious to know your thoughts on this topic, so make sure to comment that down below as well. Head over to Twitter to stalk us there or slide in the DMs with some hot tea or hot tea history topics that you'd like to see covered. And for now, I bleach.
I have one of the most dramatic dogs, not this one. Nika, let's go. Come on, let's go. Nika, let's go. Come on. Let's go for a walk. Okay, let's go. Let's go, Nika. Nika, come on. Oh my